Ready to rumble.
So what I was saying was there's two apples. Empire apples are really good. And the other one, which supermarkets used to have quite a lot of stock, but since I've gone, stock has kind of dwindled a little bit, and they're Jazz apples. Jazz apples are amazing. They are like basically the perfect apple. So
I remember seeing them. I remember seeing them on the packet, thinking it looked quite jazzy.
So if you see, which farm shop do you go to?
I did occasionally go to the one in Pilgrim's Hatch, but I'm not a regular.
Okay. So if you do see one with Jazz on it,
Try the juice version.
Try the juice version and let me know how it is.
All right. And I think cue the music because I have a shopping story to tell.
Here we go again. Welcome to the second episode of the Just Swim cast, the podcast entirely devoted to the development of our species through talk and discussion. My name is Woody.
My name's Tim.
Cool. So let's have a look at this. Have a listen to this shopping.
It's not.
story.
It's not so much a story. It's just more news to report back from the lockdown shopping experiences that one can have.
Okay.
Because I did listen to episode 1, and I realised that most of it was actually about shopping. So I went to Waitrose, didn't I?
You went to Waitrose.
I went to Waitrose, and
feeling proper middle class.
well, I'm feeling like people are missing out, mate, because it was 6:40 in the evening, which is normally prime coronavirus shopping hours because there's less people there. So I would recommend going at that time. Only thing better than that is first thing in the morning, of course, because by the evening everyone's obviously filled the place up with corona. But in the morning you're relatively safe. That's how my head thinks it works anyway. But I walked in. Someone said hello to me on the entrance.
No
and
way.
They sort of guided me towards the sanitizer, but not in an oppressive way. And the sanitizer itself wasn't one that you touch with your hand to make it work, which I think is completely just doesn't make sense right now.
Automagic.
It was a foot-powered one, which I almost prefer more than the Automagic one, because in the Automagic one, you don't know where you have to put your hand, and if there's a queue, you're like waving your hand all over, and then it squirts and it misses your hand, and you're pretending you got a few drops, and then on you go, But at least this time, it was foot-powered, so I knew what I was doing. Picked up my basket. Got a technique to pick up baskets without actually touching the handles, by the way. If anyone needs to know that, then just hit me up and we can talk privately. And off I went. I was down the vegetable aisle and there was no one there. So I proceeded to the fruit aisle and there was no one there. And that was pretty much the rest of the story, is the fact that no one was there. Most of the food was there. There are a few bits I couldn't get. I probably paid a premium of, say, £5 extra on my £20 shop. But it was the shop that I had to get toilet roll. So
that's what I was going to ask. Was there toilet roll there?
There was, yeah. Obviously,
nobody goes to Waitrose.
No one's stocking up on those like triple quilted sheets. They're all going for the tracing paper, aren't they? So it was in abundance. I think I went for the cream coloured one. So
nice.
Yeah. I'll report back next episode.
Excellent. Now, you're talking about supermarkets and sanitizers. When I was in Dubai, it's amazing how different countries are coping with this with the coronavirus and the legislations that people put in. But I had an apartment kind of quite close to a large mall, the Mall of the Emirates. It's about walking distance, 5 minutes walk, which is too much of a walk in the heat. But they took coronavirus a lot more seriously than we did. So in every mall, at every entrance and every exit, there's like a tripod with a thermal gun on it, and it scans everyone's temperature as they come in. And if you're a smidgen over normal body temperature, they just tell you to leave. Like they just say, no, you're not allowed in. And in some cases, they started to. So they were kind of not policed, but had security guards on them. And if someone was particularly high in temperature, they would not only ask them to leave, but then point them to a police officer, I suppose.
Like a testing location, sort of.
Not a
guide.
test, not a testing location, just a police officer. And the police officer took their Emirates ID.
Take them away.
And essentially,
That's
take
the
them
last
away.
we saw of them.
Yeah.
Sent them off to the Corona Island.
But that wasn't the point. The point is that once you got past the gun, the thermal gun, and you got in, which was always a bit stressful because it's already hot outside. So bearing in, like, you know, in peak summer, it's like 40 degrees Celsius. We don't deal with this Fahrenheit stuff, but 40 degrees Celsius. So it's boiling hot, and I had a 5-minute walk from my apartment to the mall entrance. So you can imagine, like, by the time I got there, I was worried that
you could have been overheating.
I could have been overheating.
Getting the ice packs out.
So what I like to, when you walk in these malls in Dubai, they are like flooded with air conditioning at the entrances. So what I like to do is a lot of people like to get in quite quickly into this mall and just get past the gun. I like to chill out a little bit and try and just dawdle along.
Like fanning yourself.
Yeah, fanning myself with the
arms spread like you've arrived like Jesus Christ or something like. Oh god.
And just try and walk as slowly as possible. And you'd always, like, you know, inside you've always got this feeling that, like, I really don't want that gun to go off, but you're trying to stay. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you feel like you're a bit guilty about something, but you don't want somebody to know that you're guilty about something. So it appears like, I don't know if people are this self-reflective when they're just. I talk to myself quite a lot in my head. So as I'm walking, I'm like, fuck, like something's going to happen. Like they're going to pull me over. I'm going to be like red on that monitor, on that camera. And I'm going to be taken away or something. I'm just like walking, and you get past it, and you turn around and have a look at the computer screen that they're looking at, and you see your little face, and it's green, and you're like, oh, thank fuck for that. But you see other people and they're red, and they're like, oh mate, you got fucked. Anyway, that's an explicit. The point was, I haven't said my point yet. Once you've got past the gun and you go to the supermarket in there, they give you gloves. They don't give you gloves. There's one of those sanitizing things, stations. So you sanitize your hands, and then on top is like not on top, on the side is like a glove dispenser, like a disposable glove dispenser, and you have to put them on before you go in, so that if you pick something up, like milk, which I used to buy quite a lot of, pick up milk, and you put it back because you don't want that one, you've not touched it, essentially.
Yeah,
because you've got the gloves on.
Well, that's one thing I'm always thinking is I go to the self-scan. I think since self-scanners being like around, I've very rarely actually gone to someone to actually scan my goods for me.
I'm not so sure that's a good thing, the self-scanning this time.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, because that's it, isn't it? Like, I was thinking that the other day. How hard would it be for the woman who sits there? I keep saying the woman when I keep talking about these jobs. I said it last time, the woman behind the deli counter. When the man stands there, like guiding people into the next bay, they should just give a little swipe, like antibacterial across the screen. But then I've also read that I think it's very unlikely to catch coronavirus from contact on surfaces. it's more likely the breathing aspect of it, and
Well,
that's where
that sounds completely. That sounds like totally different from what it was when coronavirus first came around. It was like, don't touch anything, don't
yeah.
touch your
Well, a
face,
lot
and
of
don't
things.
touch anything that's being touched by other people.
I know a lot of things are changing now about it, aren't they? Like they put loads of people on respirators to start with, and that was the main reason a lot of people died.
Apparently, what they needed was blood thinner.
Probably. Well, I think the main thing they needed was to not have their lungs put on life support when they were breathing fine.
No, so the reason why they put them on life support system is because they had low oxygen.
Yeah, because it's and the viral, like normal viral infections, they attack. They make it difficult to breathe, don't they? So they thought if they did that early, they'd support people better.
Yeah.
But they did it early, and then you've got people who. It's interesting, isn't it? Because now the science comes out, there's going to be a lot of people saying like, "Well, my old Jim would still be here if you hadn't put him on a thing."
Yeah, but I don't think you can. I don't think it's fair to do that. I don't think it's like
No, it's not.
it's a health. There's a reason why they call it health practice.
But here's the weird thing: is that I was, I think it was on Joe Rogan actually that there was a woman on there who's a doctor talking about how people who had been most susceptible to die from coronavirus, they had also found a correlation with having a low vitamin D level. And that they were also, she was also saying that this meant that I think it was Black and Asian people were more at risk due to melanin. I think that's the right. Is that it? Melanin? Is that how you say it?
It sounds about right.
Because apparently that means that you have it's harder for you to take in vitamin D, which meant that they were finding, for example, in Sweden, I think there's like a Somalian like place of migration where people have sort of set up a community, and they were getting struck really, really hard by it because they had the melanin and low vitamin D. Anyway, but my point is that I saw yesterday in the news that they're finally now saying that vitamin D is useful and can counteract your it can help you like fight against the virus, basically keep your vitamin D up. But this was like 2 months ago she's saying it. But no, not even 2 months, it makes me think coronavirus hasn't been a 3-month thing. It's been a year now. So if it was like, it must have been almost maybe a year ago now that she was saying that. And now they're finally saying it. And that's because they can't commit to everything so soon. But it's just weird that things are quite obvious from early on, but they can only confirm them later down the line because obviously they're so scared about getting it wrong, I guess. Anyway, we shouldn't drone on for too long, unless obviously. I mean, so I'm excited for this podcast because it's going to be lead things a bit. And it's like a little stocking. I don't know what's
you don't know
coming next.
Now it could get it's quite
don't do disclaimers. You're the king of disclaimers. Just go. Just pick one. I know what you're going to say. It's quite this, quite that. Just
it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It'll be
Disclaimer City.
It'll be good to see your reaction to some of these questions. A few of these questions have come from Liza as well. After she listened to episode 1, she was quite intrigued about. Well, she was interested. She enjoyed the fact that you was interviewing me, kind of. That's how it was. And she was excited to hear that I would be interviewing you this time. And that triggered a lot of exciting questions from her. So the first question...
sorry, there you go.
I've got a what? Go on.
I was just saying that's great. Like, I'm ready to start building the Asian fan base, and Liza's our first fan.
There we go. She's our first fan. So I don't really have I do have a lot of questions, but I've put this one at the end, but I might not actually start with this one. Maybe I'll start from the start.
I did that a lot. I had an order, but it didn't.
Now, interestingly, I've got some notes here, and under the first question, I've put in start from the beginning. So, here's a question, and you might need to give quite a bit of context to this. But the first thing that I'm interested in, and Liza's interested in about you, is what was your reaction, or walk us through your reaction to finding out you were going to be a father for the first time?
I knew as soon as you said that it was of interest to Liza, also this question. And then when you started saying "walk me through," I was like, I know what he's going to ask.
Now,
how's it being a daddy, or how's it finding out that I was going to be a dad?
yeah, I don't know how much context you want to give, so it's entirely up to you.
We can go down the rabbit hole. I'll try and do it quite quickly though.
Okay.
So, I mean, the first thing is we hadn't been together that long, but we had a really, really fun and exciting relationship. When you were talking about Liza, like that, that early phase we all get. That was great, but she's great as well. So I instantly knew when I met her, like, this is really fresh. And it was also like, I think the best thing about my relationship with Claudia was, I think a few relationships in my life, I'd been sort of like on the lookout for something. But I think with Claudia, I really wasn't. So I, after university, started, I came home from uni and I didn't know what I was going to do. And eventually I got a job in Domino's delivering pizzas, which we touched on last time.
Mm-hmm.
And Claudia was making the pizzas, and she remembers me going into my interview, which is funny. I only found that out like about a year after. But I remember she remembers me walking in and thinking, "Oh, who's that?" So I obviously caught the eye early on. But we were working together for, I think maybe a month, maybe 3 weeks, when our manager started sort of making jokes that Claudia like fancied me or something like that. And until that point, I'd been like just this grumpy ass worker, just keeping myself to myself, listening to my music, put my headphones in, deliver the pizzas, and just try and do absolute minimum, get through the day. And then I can figure out what I'm actually going to do with my life, because I was convinced that obviously I'm not going to be a Domino's driver for a long time.
Yeah.
So I had lots of things going on in my head. So when I was at work, I was just there to work. I wasn't really socializing much and getting on with the team, even though they were a really, really cool bunch of people at the time. But Rupi, the manager, made a joke that Claudia liked me. And then I learned Claudia's name, obviously. And then every so often I could make jokes with people and sort of get to know everyone. Memories that stick out from Domino's, I think. I remember one day Claudia, she'd always wear her Domino's outfit. She looked really cute. She's quite small, and she has the most. I'm not sure if you've met. I mean, Liza probably has. I don't know if it's all Asian girls, but their hair is like a little bit thicker.
Yeah.
And Claudia has the most spectacular like hair. Like, it's the best hair I've ever seen in the world. And she was wearing the Domino's hat with it all tied up underneath. And one day she was walking down the aisle in front of me, and she just came out of the staff room. So I guess she was starting her shift. And she took her hat off and like shook her hair like a Pantene Pro V advert. And I think it was just completely natural. I don't think it was planned, because I was behind her. And it just, I just remember, I think I actually said at the time, I was like, wow. I just went, wow. And yeah, it's the first time I've wowed at hair in my life. And then about 2-3 weeks after that, we ended up out the back of Domino's at sort of 2 a.m, doing the really late shift.
That sounds mischievous.
It does, but it wasn't. I'll clean that up.
Okay.
I say we, it was a group of us, so it was like pretty much the whole team would always
Even
go out
more
there
mischievous then.
at the end of the evening, and that would be like the smoking area where everyone would chill and have a few drinks as things wound down. It was quite fun. Like, you'd have a drink every so often as well, like things people don't know about good old Domino's times. And Claudia is a massive lightweight, and by massive I mean like you could give her like, I think probably 2 shots and she'd be like serious good night out, like drunk, like having a great time. And she was beyond gone by the time I arrived, because I'd left work and gone home. I had a free house at the time, so I went home and your brother was with me at my house. And I said to him, oh, because on the Domino's group chat, they said that Claudia's drunk. And I was like, oh, I think I should probably go back there. So I'm a little bit worried about her, like, whatever, because a few scumbags working there. So I went back, and as soon as I got there, Claudia wrapped her arms around me, and she said, "Tim is mine." And she kept repeating that. Just whenever anyone said anything or came up or tried to talk or like tried to make a little joke, like, why is this little Asian girl like wrapped around your waist? She would just say, "Tim is mine." And I think I felt really proud in that moment. I think there's actually a picture of us sat on one of the crates that the dough used to get delivered in, and Claudia's wrapped around me. She's got her Asian flush on her cheeks from drinking. And yeah, she said, "Tim is mine." And I didn't even know, like, I knew Rupi made jokes that she liked me. But
it was true.
Yeah, it was true. So we started seeing each other. And then eventually I asked the question. I think that was on her birthday that I asked the question, actually.
So interestingly, even though last episode you were...
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know exactly.
You still
That's
did
what
it.
I was thinking about at the time. Yeah. Well, I kind of... I think I was actually almost provoked into it because I was asked, well, what are we? So at that point I knew, well, if it's not defined, then it sounds like I need to define it.
Yeah.
So that happened, and then I think around half a year later, could be less, found out that Claudia was pregnant, which was a massive, massive shock.
I bet it was. Now at
wasn't planned.
At this point, you were both at Domino's still?
Yeah, we were still at Domino's. I was making my music with you, so me and you had just started recording in Catman Boogie, which is a small studio in Essex that is essentially a chicken shed that's converted into a music studio that people pay and go and use. And we knew the owner and ended up managing to get some free time if we helped out and did all these weird things every so often. And we'd got quite far into the album at that point, I think.
Right. So
I thought I was going to be a musician.
Wow.
That's what I remember telling Claudia the first time. Actually, there's more backstory to actually us meeting. So before we go into the pregnancy, because it is quite cool, she had a dream about me one night, all like completely random, during the phase of like the manager saying that she fancied me or whatever. And then one day I was driving to Domino's and I took this weird way that I can't explain taking. I can't even remember what I was doing or why I would be going that way. And then I saw Claudia walking along the side of the street, and I pulled over and I was like, "Hey, do you want a lift?" Because she's obviously going to Domino's, yeah?
Yeah.
And she looked at me, she was like, "What?" Like completely like, this is so weird. Like I've just been dreaming about this guy and all of a sudden he's like just turned up and said, "Hey, do you want a lift?" And looking back, I think, yeah, I was a cool dude back then. I probably had some really cool rock music on, my shades on, really feeling like I was going to be a rock star. Yeah. And then, yeah, that was a cute story. But yeah, back to the pregnancy. So,
wait, I've just got a question.
Okay, yeah.
Before you carry on. So, actually, no, I'll let you carry on because my question actually comes in time later on. So sorry. Carry
on. So I'd love to say that it wasn't the case of like us shitting the bed and really thinking like, okay, what are we going to do here? But I think with her family and with my family, we were both quite worried about what our parents would say.
Yeah.
And we were both really concerned because we were both young and we hadn't known each other that long. And I think part of us, like I wanted to be a musician and Claudia had like, she wanted a brilliant life as well. Like she wanted to be working in finance, she had a lot of ambition. So I guess we were kind of also probably not talking to each other about it, but also questioning like, yeah, okay, maybe we could raise a kid, but is it the right thing for us to raise a kid? Because what if things don't work out between us? How does that work?
Right.
At which point, thoughts like that do bring up the sort of discussion around, are we keeping this baby,
Yeah.
which was brutal at the time. And I remember we would uh, we would drive around, like, just picking her up from Domino's, driving her home, talking about it, crying together, just crying and crying and crying all the time, just about the situation.
Yeah.
And then one day out the back of Domino's, when we were on lunch break, um, I said to Claudia, "Well, what if we keep the baby? What if we keep it?" And I wasn't really sure what I was saying at the time. And I remember when I said it, it was almost like my body holding me back from speaking. Like, I couldn't say the words, but then I wanted to say it, so I did. I said, what if we keep her? Not her, but it, because we didn't know at the time, obviously. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I think in that moment, we both just thought about it for a second. What would it mean? What would it mean for our parents? What would it mean for work? What would we do? And as soon as we sort of crossed that bridge of discussing what we would do, it almost felt like an inevitability that we had to, like, change our minds and go ahead with it.
Yeah.
And that wasn't like a quick thing. That was when I say feeling awful, I think that was like a decent 3-4 weeks of not knowing what we were doing. And then that night, we told my parents.
Which night was this? Because, like, well,
that was the night. Well, the same night that we'd both spoken to each other and said,
so you went balls out. You fully committed. You was like, right.
Yeah, because I knew about our parents, and I thought if I could have my mum behind me, this whole thing would be easier for me and for Claudia.
And what was her reaction like initially?
Well, my mum's awesome. I think I've never met someone who has the ability to just care so much about something that isn't herself. She cares for me, my brother, and my sister more than, and their partners. So she cares for Claudia, like, everyone, like, and the grandkids now they're here.
Everyone's mum.
Like, everyone more than herself.
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous, to the point where I wish she wouldn't sometimes, because it's, I want her to calm down and relax and things.
Yeah.
But she was obviously upset because she thinks it's a limitation to my potential, that I'm, I'm just fresh out of uni, I could do all these things. She was upset, and she was upset for Claudia as well, because she thought the same thing for Claudia, because Claudia was doing her university degree at the time.
Yeah.
So, because Claudia hadn't finished her uni degree yet, whereas I had. But within, like, because Claudia was outside in the car, she wouldn't come in. And then as soon as she told me, like, as soon as I told her, she was kind of like, okay, fine, yeah, okay, where is she? And I was like, oh, she's outside. She's like, well, bring her in then. Like, so then Claudia came in, and then like, I think my mum gave her a hug. You can shout if I'm wrong at any time, Claudia. My mum gave her a hug, and then I think from there we were kind of like, okay, well, all right, we've got Matt and my mum behind her. Matt was safe as well. He's always just like
always supportive.
And there, yeah, silently supportive.
Yeah.
Well, not always silent, but being there is enough.
Yeah.
And then we went to go and tell Claudia's parents, and that wasn't as easy. I won't go into it too deep, but it's obviously very different, because you have Asian families which are very sort of strict around how tradition should be and things like that. But then, yeah, the pregnancy got going. I remember trying to answer the question of how did you feel about it, because I know it's a big story, but this bit's a bit more about that.
Okay.
I remember going to George Todd's house, which is a friend of ours, and all the guys were there, and they're all in the garage having a good time. And I remember just sort of standing up there in a circle. I think they were probably passing a joint around between themselves and jamming and stuff like that, just being kids. And
everyone was there. I was there. Briggsy was there. I think J
Yeah.
Ray was there, Ollie Carr was there.
It's actually
everyone.
a weird one in that way, in the sense that we are quite hard to get together. So I felt like the time was right, so I just stood up and was like, I'm going to be a dad. And I remember I was looking at Toddy at the time, and him just sort of sat on the floor looking up at me, just like, just like, what? Like, oh, I mean, like, wow, well done. And Briggsy as well, your brother, I remember him being like, everyone was kind of like behind me about it and stuff.
Initially, I think that was the point that I found out as well. I don't think you had told me until that day either.
Yeah.
And do you know what I thought?
What?
When you said that?
What?
I didn't even think that it was a problem. What I thought is, how comes I'm finding out now? And then in that time that I was thinking that, my brother, because he popped up first. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I think he said something along, because it was silent, wasn't it? Like, it was quite a tense moment for you, and I could see that you were. It was difficult for you to endure that silence. But eventually Ollie piped up. But that's all I was. I didn't even care. I was like, oh great, like this is brilliant. That's why. Anyway, carry on.
But I didn't feel when it was silent. That didn't put me at, like, make me feel anxious. I think I was just like, I was relieved to tell people in a way. Going back to how I feel about it, like my friends at the time, and they still are. Like, I don't see a lot of the friends, especially those people we talk about. That's one of the things. Like, being a dad, you don't do as you did before. You're not just a boy running around the world just doing whatever you want.
Yeah.
And they were so much to me, my friends still are. So telling them it had to be done. It was like the main thing about it was, how can I share this with people?
Yeah.
At which point my excitement was just like over the moon. Like, I was thinking about it most of the time. I was worried about it a lot. And I did go out, and then I said to myself, I have to get a job. So I started a very stressful job, which made the sort of fear of being a parent probably worse, because I wasn't sleeping and I was doing all these ridiculous things, like having like night sweats and stuff like that. But that was all work induced. That wasn't the idea of being a dad so much. So it was a twisty, turny time, is how I felt. But underneath it all, I mean, I can go back to the memory of Claudia playing music to her tummy on her phone at the time, where we didn't know if we were going to be keeping or not keeping this baby. And it's just mad. I remember going to the scan when we first found out she was pregnant, and not knowing if we were going to be keeping this baby. And at the time, Claudia was always eating these clementine oranges, like small satsumas.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, like, even now when we go to that hospital and I see the fruit stand, like, I remember buying the satsumas at that fruit stand, and it's just like, dude, like, think how far we've come. Like, she's the best thing in our lives. So it's just crazy. It's a crazy whirlwind. But it is most definitely the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I remember, it could have been a few occasions, but I remember one particular time where I'm not sure what had happened. Either Sainsbury's was closed or something. It was quite late at night. She was still pregnant, Claudia. She hadn't had the baby yet. And you either called me or texted me and was like, Woody, I need your help. And I was like, what is it? And I think you said, Claudia wants a pineapple.
That sounds realistic.
So
I can't remember this, but I know that the story ends with you getting me a pineapple.
Yeah, so anyway, I went to Tesco down the road, picked up a pineapple, and I think on the way I was receiving messages and I was looking at my phone, and the messages coming through from you were like, "Oh, she's getting really antsy now. She really needs this pineapple."
Yeah. My car must have been broken. There must have been.
It must have been. Yeah, it must have been
a pineapple. But that is a testament to Woody, by the way, people, is the earlier today, me, Claudia, and Miyako were. Claudia had a scan, and I was thinking the car's a bit cold as I was sat there in the car park with Miyako, so I went to turn the engine on and realised I'd had my lights on the whole time and the battery had gone. And I've got RA. I text Woody, I was like, my battery's gone. He's like, have you got RAC? And in my head, I was like, yeah, but obviously I'm calling you.
I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh God, like, just.
And out he came.
Mr. RAC.
Yeah, Mr. Woody Briggs. If you need a pineapple, if you need your car starting, there he is.
There I am. Anyway, so I think you've given enough context about.
That's good because it's covered how I met Claudia as well. So that's a good question.
Yeah. Now the next question is kind of a continuation of this. And there are two questions. I'll ask them both at the same time in the case that you could answer them both. You've kind of already answered this one, but how did you adjust to becoming a father? What adjustments did you have to make in your life in order to either prepare to be a dad or once the baby was born? What notable adjustments did you feel you had to make in order to survive as a dad? And the question that kind of goes along with that is, now that you are a dad and you've had 4 years of experience of being a dad, what are the struggles of a modern father?
Well, you're going to have to ask me that one afterwards because I will not remember two questions at once.
Cool. Okay.
So the first one.
How did you adjust to becoming a father?
Well, I think my life changed quite a lot. As I said, like friends, like if you'd asked my mum since the day I was like in sixth form, which is like what, when you're like 17, maybe even 16, every night I was out of the house. You get like every single night I was out of the house, seeing friends, walking around, just literally walking around roads with friends.
My brother,
most of the time, your brother. Yeah, we used to call it snitting. That was what we called it.
Being a snit.
Being a snit. But we were out all the time, and we didn't just snit. We did some pretty awesome things. I've got loads of brilliant memories of being a kid. And
so you lost that.
That was a big transition. Was kind of like learning to let go of that. And in the early pregnancy, I could still go out and see my friends and everything. But then as Claudia was getting like bigger and bigger, I felt more of a responsibility to like. And also, we were organising things to live together because we didn't live together at the time, so we had to rent. I also transitioned into, like, instead of working in Domino's, I got a job being a estate agent, working in a company that had really low wages, good commission, but really low wages, and really long hours, like 7 till 7, 6 days a week. And that was in Canary Wharf in London. So I was traveling every day to work. I was getting the train most days at like waking up at 5:30. Eventually I'd just start driving there because I hated going on the train. So I'd be driving straight to Canary Wharf every morning. So that was a transition. Living together was a transition as well, because we moved in before Miyako arrived. So I guess, what transition did I make? Well,
what adjustments?
It's kind of interesting to think about because I always have this fear of what if I hadn't become a parent, because I was in Domino's, I was making an album with you, I had finished my drama degree, I had this overwhelming sense that I could achieve something and that I would achieve something, or that something good would come or happen to me. But I was never putting in the work. Apart from creating music with you, I wasn't working. I wasn't grinding to achieve something. No. I always met these people at uni who are like, I want to be a marketing guy, or I want to be a basketball player, or I don't know what these people want to be, but they knew what they wanted and they could talk to you for hours about how they were going to achieve it. And I was never that person. It's funny, actually, this reminds me, at drama, we were once, they said, they put a chair in the middle of the room and they said to everyone to stand as close or as far away as how much they rate their education as a part of their life, like how regard that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood on the outskirts of the room, and a lot of people were stood right next to the chair. And then they said to them, "What do you guys want to be?" And all the people stood near the chair were saying all these things, like I just said. They knew what they wanted to be.
Yeah.
And I was stood on the outside of the room, and I was the last guy they asked. They said, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I think I want to be a dad."
No
It's
way.
really weird. That's really weird looking back at it. Yeah. I said, I want to have a family because I don't think those other things will fulfill me.
Now,
And it was like the end to the lecture, and I was like, I could hear a pin drop. I was like, yeah, that's right.
boom. Yeah.
That's right. Enjoy a marketing degree. But yeah, those are the transitions. Was the work change. But the main thing is like I did actually, like, looking back now. She's now 4. I'm not working a horrible job. I think I've done quite well for myself. And that path, like, would I have walked that path on my own without the motivation, without Miyako, without Claudia, without, rent to pay and childcare to pay, and
I think it was
that was it.
Yeah, I think it was I think it was a good kick into gear. It was brutal at the start.
The thing is, right, is it, like, to be to look in the mirror. I would say that sounds quite big-headed, but I always thought I was capable of achieving something, almost to the point where I felt like I was like a diamond. You could just throw me in the rough and something good would happen. And like I was kind of like sat there like working, and I was like, okay, nothing's happening. But then it forced me to actually like put myself out there and not wait for something good to happen. Precisely. I think actually I've said it in the wrong way. I think I kind of deep down within me, I felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like I wasn't good enough. Like I wasn't, I didn't deserve success. If success was going to be mine, it would have to find me, because I didn't deserve it enough to go seeking it, because I wouldn't achieve it. So there was a lot of self-doubt as well. It was a bit weird. But.
Yeah. Now it's, I want to try and, before I ask you the next question again, I think there's something to touch upon there for other people as well. Just so that the whole podcast isn't just about you. A lot of people are in a similar situation, or were in the similar situation as to you, as you just described it, which was a lot of people don't know what they want to do, even if they go to university. And I think this says something about society's expectations versus people, like individuals. So this like predetermined, rigid lifestyle that a lot of Western society has, and so I hear Asia as well in some parts, like getting a good education, going to uni, getting a good job, getting married, buying a house, all of these sorts of things.
Yeah, I know.
Right? Now,
so traditional.
It's a very traditional outlook, and it's not a bad. What I'm trying to get across is it's not a bad. It's not a bad thing that it's a predetermined life for somebody. The problem that I think is, and I had it as well for a short while, but I found myself quite quickly in what I was passionate about, which I think a lot of young people struggle to do. But people aren't sort of guided in a way that they can find their passion, which I think is quite an important thing to do. I don't know if you do. I feel like you do in some essence.
I think it depends on the person. So I think there's like 50% of people actually really care about their job and really care about their purpose in life and whether they're actually focusing it towards something they enjoy. And I think there's another 50% who see work as entirely a way to fund the things they enjoy. And I don't think there's a problem with either or. Simply because in my situation throughout my career, not to go back to me, but to go back to me, I have always pushed myself in front of people and said, I can do these things. These are the things I would like to do, rather than what you want me to do. Okay, yeah, I'll do the things you want. Here are the things I want to do.
Right.
And taking on that extra thing, and sort of like people being like, oh shit, you can do that. Okay. And that's always benefited me. But there are a lot of people who will sit at work and they will, be waiting to lunch so they can go on their phone, talk to their friends about what they're doing tonight. Got another tab open, looking at some new trainers they want to buy. Like, it's just not. It's not. They're not devoted to want to make the most of that work time. Might be an assumption. Maybe there's a reason for it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we must be quite similar in the way we treat our work. Now that we've got the experience that we've got in work, and we can kind of, I mean, I'm not employed at the moment, but the work that I have done over the past 2 to 3 years, I enjoy it, and
Yeah, you do it after hours.
yeah,
Sit there in the evening coding. I don't know how you manage it.
it's well,
Actually, to be fair, I used to run like the telegrams after hours. I used to sit there and like joke around with community members and love it. It's the same thing. It's just,
so
sometimes it's hard to switch off, isn't it? So.
I guess my question is, do like, surely everyone must have that desire, or am I just too naive to know that maybe people don't have that desire? Maybe people don't ever want to think about what they want to do. They just want to be told, as you say, told what to do, and they'll do it.
I think they do. I think, saying it's 50-50 is crazy. Like, there's such a vast spectrum of different people they want. Like I say, like, there's some people who just exactly know what they want to do and they follow that and they find enjoyment in it all the time. Like, I wanted to make music. I still do kind of want to make music, like, but then by being thrust into a job and finding different things and sort of finding ways to put my creativity into my work that isn't singing, I do no singing at work and I love my job. It's nothing like being a singer. It's completely different. But you find those little grooves as long as you put yourself out there and you want to look for them. It's kind of about being open-minded in a way.
Yeah.
It's similar. I'd liken it to asking for a pay rise. A lot of people don't ask for a pay rise, and then they'll say to you in like 4 years' time, I've been here for 4 years and I've never had a pay rise. And I'll say, have you asked for one? They're like, well, no.
Yeah.
I haven't asked for one. Whereas in that time, I'd have asked for 4 pay rises because it's every year.
Yeah.
But it's the same. If you don't look for these things in your work, if you don't look for these things in your life, then you won't find them.
Well, I do agree with that. I feel that there is maybe some misfortune among some people in that they haven't necessarily been exposed to the things that they might enjoy. So I'll try and do this with an analogy. And it's going to be quite a stereotypical analogy, which I'm sorry in advance for. But let's say this next child of yours is a baby boy. And at some point throughout his life, as he's growing up, maybe he gets to Miyako's age now, and somebody gets him a like a toy bin truck, like rubbish truck, and it can, like, it's got a little motorized controller and it can pick up rubbish and put it in the back of it. He has now been exposed to, a rubbish truck and what it would be like to be a binman, like collecting rubbish. So that's now on that child's radar of possible things. What I worry is that people aren't necessarily exposed to all the things that are possible.
Yeah.
And I was speaking about this with my dad actually recently, which was, where is all the knowledge in the world? Like,
it's all not tapped into. It's all in people's heads because they haven't explored that muscle.
But not only that, is if they're like, I don't know, I'm a digital person, so this is the only way I can kind of put it, but like manufacturing a silicon chip, like designing it from end to end and then manufacturing it, there must only be about 20 people in the entire world that know how to do that. If those 20 people die tomorrow, we're fucked. Like, all of our digital stuff is gonna, like, we won't be able to produce any new chips to run our new digital world. That's quite an extreme one, but I'm sure there are other things in the world, like canning a tin of beans. Like, how many people know how to can a tin of beans? Some people don't even know that that is a manufacturing process.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting question because we always talk about the development of future and how it's going to take our jobs. But there are actually a lot of jobs that the future generations wouldn't consider working anyway, that would have to be automated. Like, I don't know how many people at the moment, I think younger people are growing up. I'd include myself in the group of younger people. So it's not like I'm trying to offend anyone, but I think that we all feel an entitlement to chase our dreams, or an expectation to have a dream or to know what we want. I think it's something a lot of times you hear in school as well. You know, if you compare it to when my granddad was around, quite often you might end up working in the family business, like what your dad does, or and you just kind of know that. And school was a way to benefit you as a person. You learn the skills as a person so that you can apply them to work and you can apply them to life, and you can learn about things and maybe get a different job, whatever. But now we grow up sort of like idolizing over all these different options that we supposedly have. And then a lot of people just stuck in the middle ground job of like whatever it is, customer service, or, you know, that sort of middle lane where it's a vanilla job where you're kind of not doing a specialty that you love, but you're doing something just to pay the bills, because the reality is that that job that you love is, you know, one in a million. Like, I wanted to be a musician.
Yeah, that's not to like slander anyone that does love being a customer service, because there are people that do love it. And there was times that me and you were kind of in that role, and we did enjoy it as well.
Oh yeah, I actually think there's a beauty in customer service and in good customer service. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like there are a lot of jobs, and customer service would be one of them, where someone might end up going to the interview. Oh, I love it. I can't wait to do this. But most of the time be sat on their phone just thinking, when can I go home?
Yeah.
And that isn't customer service. That's getting through a job. And that's a vanilla job.
Yeah, I agree. So that was quite a large tangent back, but I want to take it back to you now. This is another question, which is kind of an extension of being a father, but it's more about your relationship with Claudia. The question is, what did you discover in your relationship that you only discovered because you two were living together? So just to maybe give a bit more context to the question, you're in the honeymoon phase with like Claudia at the start, where you're kind of dating, or she's your girlfriend, however long that was, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, whatever it was. Everything's great. Like, it feels like you're unstoppable and it's amazing. But you're not, you're not fully in the situation yet. So that's why I've asked this question, is to try and discover what it's like to permanently live someone, especially now that COVID has happened and you're spending more time than ever with your partner. So what did you discover in your relationship that you only discovered because you were living together?
So I know the answer as soon as you ask me, and it is like the main thing that springs to mind, and the best thing that I discovered was that, like, a lot of the time you can spend time with someone and it kind of makes you notice things that you perhaps don't like, and it gets on top of you, gets under you a bit. And I think that's a really good way to figure out if you're in a relationship or a friendship that doesn't really work for you. Those little signals are something that you should listen to. The best thing with Claudia is that every day, like, we spend so much time together, especially in lockdown. Like, we're both working from home, 2-bed flat on top of each other. Miyako's here as well. But even before Miyako, and also with Miyako, like, every second is amazing. Like, there's never a second where I think either of us would want anything to change. Like, I know she feels the same, but I'll speak for myself. Like, I'm so grateful just to be with her, and that so imagine the situation I'm in could have happened to anyone completely random, and it could have been with anyone. And I didn't know the person I didn't know Claudia too much at the time. But when I flipped that coin, I struck gold, because every bit I learn about her, every day we spend together, every time that we share a joke, or we're just good at living together, I think. And that's that would have been the one thing where this would have gone wrong. And I think that's where I live in a council flat, and I think there's I rent in a council flat, by the way.
It's a private flat, privately owned flat.
I pay so much money to be in a council flat. It's ridiculous.
It's a block of majority council flats.
Yeah,
but it's a private landlord.
Yeah, but a lot of people, or 99% of people who live here, don't pay to rent, and they are council tenants. And a lot of them are a good example of where, I suppose, the same situation has happened, but the two people don't get on, and they don't end up sticking together. Or when they do, all they do is argue, and you see this kid that's being dragged around by two parents who are just always arguing, and it's horrendous to even watch. So I think that's the thing that sticks out to me. I have learned that I am I think it's so much easier for me to love Claudia than for Claudia to love me, because she does so much for the house. She does so much to look after me, so much to look after Miyako. And I just kind of
a useless bastard.
Yeah, I say all the things before, I got a job and I was paying the bills, doing all this stuff. Yeah, I think I did what I had to do. I'm not a superhero, and she is a superhero because she goes above and beyond every day. When I see she'll cook Miyako a meal, like a chicken vegetable soup, and I'll look down at it, and Miyako's finished the whole bowl. And I just think to myself, my kid is the best fed kid in the whole world. She eats such good food, so healthy, and it's all and that's me as well. She just looks after us and she cares for us. And
so the least you could do, is do the washing up so that she could cook even more delicious meals.
I am especially now pregnancy's back on. I am upping the gears. So
that's good.
Bought some rubber gloves so that I.
Oh yeah, you got to get the rubber gloves on.
Yeah, I get eczema on my hands really bad from washing up liquid. So big rubber gloves on, and
are they nice long ones up to your elbow?
They said they were, but they weren't. I've been mugged off. I do have long ones, but I use those for my fish tank. So
well, you do have long arms as well. So
I do, yeah. It's probably they didn't mug me off. They probably are large ones.
Yeah, they probably do fit normal people.
They look like, yeah, exactly.
So I've got a few more questions. The next one is kind of a short one, but it might need a lot of explaining, as I don't know if you and Claudia have been through this. Me and Liza have done this. But there's a website, I can't remember it now. I think it got distributed around Facebook a few times and Instagram and Twitter. But it basically is a survey which you fill out like a personality form, and it tries to work out what is your love language. Do you know something of this?
I don't know something of it, but I know what types there are. So you could be physical, or
so let me read
and stuff like that.
Yeah, let me read through them. The ones that were on this website at least. And if you need explanation, I mean, I don't think you will. I can. So the first one is physical touch. Second one is receiving gifts. Third is words of affirmation. Fourth is acts of service. Fifth is quality time. Which of these do you think? You can order them if you like. That's what the website did. It basically puts a percentage.
I'd have to be able to remember 6 things to do that. I think let me talk about the ones that struck out to me the most.
I can run through them again if you want me to.
I don't like being given gifts. I like giving gifts. At Christmas, I'd 100 times watch myself giving Claudia her presents than her give me hers.
Okay.
Like that was one thing about this lockdown is I was like looking forward to Christmas to give Claudia her presents. Like, so I must obviously be the opposite of that. I think the quality time one rings a bell. Like it's the
now based on what you said earlier about her looking after the house and you being like proud of what she does for Miyako and caring for you, it seems like acts of service would be.
Yeah, well, I thought that, but then I say to myself, like, if any of those things stopped, it wouldn't stop the way I feel about her. Like it.
No, so it's not about
acts of service makes it sound like it's like, oh, this person does stuff for me, so I love them. Or it makes me feel warm, not in such a savage way, but that is kind of what it's saying.
I suppose so. I never thought of it like that.
Like,
I don't think it's supposed to be that.
What was the one before quality time?
Acts of service. The one before that was words of affirmation.
That's important to me.
I think that's probably highest on my list as well.
Yeah. Words. So I couldn't give 2 shits if she doesn't text me for a year. Like say if I was on work in a different country and she didn't like text me every second of the day, like that doesn't bother me. I'm not that sort of a words person. But like I think there are moments where as long as you let the other person know that you're really happy with them, I think that's an important part to a relationship. And we do that. So
that's good. Now for me, words of affirmation personally is I like to talk about things that I've done, and I'm quite proud of when I do something, even if it's very small, like making a song or building a product or whatever it is I'm doing, or just finding out some software or finding out a fact that not many people know and going to tell it to somebody. I get a lot of gratification and satisfaction when people are maybe proud or happy for me that I've done something. That for me is words of affirmation. I think you might agree that I need that. Like Woody is that sort of person that enjoys that. Maybe you don't see that side of me. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I see that side to you. I don't obviously see it like, I don't know, the question, your love, whatever it is, language, I think it's more your language, really. I think they kind of intertwine together. It's the sort of person you are. And yeah, I'd say that you are, I think you always want to be thought of as someone who achieves and helps and knows.
Yeah, I think I agree to that. Anyway, that covers a lot of things on my list, but I do have ideas that I want to talk to you about, or at least discuss. Is there anything that like we've talked about so far that triggers something in your head that you've been desperate to ask this whole time but haven't been able to? Because I've been
right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you really well.
That was brilliant. I'm back.
What happened there?
I don't know. I'm back though. I got a thing that said my USB has had a power surge, and I bent over and looked at it, and then it started working again.
Oh, Jesus. Was you talking?
No, I wasn't. You were talking.
Oh, okay, fine.
What did you say?
Oh, I suppose you couldn't hear me either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can hear a thing.
I said I've sort of gone through my list of things that I wanted to ask, but I do have more to talk about. I was just offering you the chance to provide something if you've got something.
It's your show, mate. It's your show.
No,
Don't choke under the pressure, mate.
I'm not
Don't
choking
choke.
under the pressure. I've got something to talk about.
Go on then, talk about it, sir. You can do it.
No, it's just that last time I came with a topic that we could have talked about,
I
but
know.
you didn't want
Yeah,
it. So
yeah. All right.
So
The answer's no, I don't. I'm sure something will arrive.
okay. I was thinking about. I mean, I thought about this for quite a long time, ever since I was in school. And I only just thought about the question again after last episode that we recorded. And you said, with all of your talents and everything, to me. And when I listened to the episode back, it triggered the question in me again, which is, do you think, like, is talent, like the idea of talent, is it something you are born with? Is it like not necessarily genetic, but it's part of you from a child? Like, if you'll be a piano player and you'll be talented at being a piano player. Is there such thing as raw talent? I know I've got a very defined answer to this, but I'd like to hear your. It's not necessarily a defined answer, but I got a very strong case for my opinion on this. But I'd like to hear your opinion on it first.
Sure. So my answer would be that talent is like, keep going to percentages here, but I think it's like 30% of your talent is like seeded in DNA. So, and I might just believe this because I come from a family of musicians and we all do music. So I have this inherent belief that we are musical, or that I am musical because of that. We're also all teachers as well. So we kind of teach our talents down the line. But I think a lot of people are born with a skill set that they can't necessarily match with their parents because it's either a blend of the two, and it's so random, like taking this and that from the other, that it makes like this child that, I see Miyako and I see myself in her, I see Claudia in her. But I don't see an exact replication of myself. I don't think that's me. I think that's me, but it's also a little bit of Claudia, like, it's hard to tell. And I think the goalposts are like set in a certain area. So, maybe two creative people might make a more creative child than two mathematicians might make a more logical child. But having said that, I think the rest of it, which is like 70%, perhaps more, is like experience, like the parenting of the child as you grow up, the encouragement in certain areas.
So there's
teachers, all these things.
Yeah, there's two axes, right? There's like genetic / inherited, and there's environmental.
Like nature,
Yeah. So you're sort of positioning talent on kind of 70% weighted to environment and 30% weighted to inherited / genetics.
Yeah, it's like if I get a plant and it has like purple flower leaves, petals, and then I get another plant that has purple petals, and not that plants can make sex, but you know what I mean, the seeds, we get the seeds and we regrow them, they're probably going to be purple plants. If I then put them in the shade, they grow in a different way, so they might not grow as much as if I put them in the light. If I don't water them, then another set of them might be a different color to the other ones, like the purple will change slightly.
Right, but
they can't be green. They will still be purple.
Absolutely, I agree with that, but talent is quite a different thing from aesthetics.
Genetics.
Well, just aesthetics, just the way something looks and the way and how something operates.
Yeah, but I don't think that DNA just passes down how you look. I think it passes down more than that. I think it passes down like memories, like for example, the fear of spiders, the fear of heights, like these like survival instincts that are part of our DNA that pass down through the ranks, so that we understand that we shouldn't do certain things. These innate feelings that you have. And I also think as a part of that, you're also gaining the muscle memory, the emotional memory that your parents passed down. Um, so I think that's why, I think that is also why there's such a tight knit in most families, because you are actually more similar to your family and your mindset than anyone else, because of the fact that you have their DNA going through you, and then obviously the nurture of growing up together as well.
But you could also say that you're more closely connected to your family because you've spent the most amount of time with them. Therefore, your environment has been impacted by them most.
Yeah.
So I would like to give my opinion on this, because I have quite a strong opinion on it. And it kind of differs from yours with a caveat. But there is a question at the end that I think you asked at the end of your one, or not, you didn't ask, you believe it, which I think would be an extension of this, which we might need to hire some scientists to study. But my answer to this is, I don't believe talent is inherited. I am of the strong opinion that given the right opportunity, a person could learn to do something quite well. Well enough for somebody to say, oh, you're talented in that. Now, the caveat behind all of this is genetics, in that somebody's body may be better built for some things than others. So, like Usain Bolt, he has the genetics to be a fast runner, but he could have easily been talented in hardware engineering. Similarly, a musician, let's say somebody is talented at singing because they've got perfect pitch, may benefit from the right size ear canal that resonates just at the right frequencies for them to have a slight edge over somebody else at listening.
Yeah, so even as you started explaining this at the very start, I was starting to think to myself, do I actually believe what my answer was, or do I believe more like this? And I think I'm more on your side of the fence in a way. I think not to say 30% is a lot, and I think if there is a margin of it that is down to genetics, talent, I would say it's almost the myth of genetics. So, for example, exactly as I said to you, my parents are musicians, and they come from musicians, and they come from musicians, because we all think we're meant to be musicians, not because like I have a special bone that makes me good at playing violin. Like, I don't. I'm the same as most people. And I think it's an interesting concept, the idea of like this vanilla, because the brain is like a sponge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just like I said about when you put a plant in a certain position with the light, it grows in a certain way. Like, you're so right. When you put a garbage truck in front of a little kid, like all the experiences, they all are watering the plant inside his head.
In different ways. Everybody gets a different watering can.
Yeah, 100%. I'm on Team Woody with that answer, actually.
Now
it's
interesting because I have strong memories of having serious arguments with people at high school about this topic. A lot of my friends at the time were adamant that talent is like you're born with it. Like, you are born to be a musician, and that they couldn't accept that a lot of what, I mean, I don't know if my idea is true. Maybe there is something in it, maybe there is genetics, quite a like heavily weighted genetic side of it, but I just don't rationally. It doesn't make sense.
I think it's quite interesting to actually that people want to champion that idea, and it makes me think of like when you see people on X Factor with their parents at the side, like the mum, like hands together, like so excited to see the kid. Like people like Justin Bieber and all that. Like when you get to know these people, a lot of their careers are driven by their parents. So they think obviously that they are born to do something, but it's kind of like, well, yeah, you are born to something. Your parent wants you to be this, so that's kind of what you're going to be.
Yeah.
That's a really interesting one.
But
And I think talent is interesting because talent's like a really varied thing. Like, okay, so you're logical, but you've never learnt to code. So you might not even think you're a logical person because you're not someone who does development, which is something that's really like it's in tandem with the idea of being logical. And you know, I might be a wizard at coding, but I don't ever try it, do I?
exactly. So now it could have been at the time I was how old was I? Like maybe 14, 15. The reason why they didn't understand what I was saying is probably because I couldn't dictate what I was thinking properly. I probably couldn't put into words how I just did to you back then that well, because I just didn't know enough about the world. I didn't know about environment, and
I think also you developed as a person in terms of your ability to argue against people and to stand up for what you think about in comparison to when you
I used to get I
can imagine you like laughing about him being like, but deep down inside being like, talent is not inherited.
Yeah, exactly.
There is I have to go back to the last podcast, by the way, because I just like you, I listened to it, and I listened again to the part where I said that depending on like some certain situations, I don't know what you'd be doing, and I can't remember the words that I used, but I listened back to it, and I was like saying that you'd be struggling in audio engineering to achieve some sort of success, and like looking back at it, like I was thinking to myself, I think you are just like not like me, but like I think you are the person who will swim in any waters. You won't sink. So I was kind of thinking like, no, I was wrong about that. I don't know why I said that.
Well,
But it is an interesting question to say, what would you be doing? Because the reason I say that is your motivation and happiness to stay in a room and not interact with the world and challenge yourself. But I still think that eventually push would have come to shove, whether it be your parents just saying to you, look, what are you doing? Do something.
yeah.
Or you actually just saying it to yourself.
And that
there
is
are
something
times
that did yeah, that exactly that those things do happen, which is one of the reasons why I just threw myself in when you said, look, get a job with me. Because I literally felt useless. And I can imagine that is probably quite a common feeling that lots of people have right now, like especially as a lot of people have lost their job and through no fault of their own.
Yeah. It's funny, you know, because we fit quite together. Because, like, when you said that I said, come and work, like, it makes me realize that I'm always the one who wants to, like, I'm always looking at other people's problems and, like, trying to, like in my head, like, and not always like forcing it upon someone, but just like slowly guiding my advice towards these people. But I don't advise myself about anything.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's funny because you're quite good at well,
I'm good at advice, but I'm the last person people would ever take advice from.
well, I took
they don't realize what they're missing out on.
yeah. See, I'm kind of the opposite. I feel that I'm quite rational and would give fairly reasonable advice to somebody. It's just that nobody wants to listen to my advice. So what we need to do is we need to have you as the persuader, and me telling you what they need to do.
Yeah. We can start a
consultant. Yeah.
achieve your dreams. God.
Excellent.
What did you want to be when you were younger?
What did I want to be?
Yeah.
Well, this is it. I guess this kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is like people struggling to find their passion in or what they're passionate about. I was passionate about making music, not necessarily. So I guess I've always been kind of curious about how things work and how things are made. I remember being maybe 5 or 6, and my favorite part about getting a McDonald's Happy Meal was the overwhelming excitement of taking a screwdriver to whatever the toy came with the Happy Meal and taking it apart, and pretending to know what I was looking at. A lot of the time they were just like small little electronics devices that you press a button and it makes a sound. But I used to enjoy that was it. I used to finish my McDonald's downstairs in my old house, grab whatever toy came with it, run up to my bedroom, and I don't know where I got a screwdriver from. I think I must have asked my dad for a screwdriver. Maybe I was more like 6 or 7, something like that age, and just take it apart. And then my mum or dad would come up and say, well, you've broke it. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I never wanted this long term. I'm not attached to it. I just wanted to see what's inside, to see how it worked. And I'm still like that now. So I guess I kind of built on, I've never lost that. Never lost that feeling of taking something apart and pretending to know how it works. The good thing now is, I wouldn't say it's good. The thing I can do now is convince people that I do know what I'm talking about when I open something up.
Yeah.
But at the time, when I was maybe 13, 14, I remember sitting at my desktop PC. I think it was a Dell E520, if anyone's playing along at home. You can look that one up. It was a 2-core processor.
It was a computer.
It was a computer. And it was running Windows Vista. But anyway, where I'm going with this is I had some small speakers, and I was always fascinated about how sound would get from my computer to the speakers. And I was like, how does that work? I didn't end up taking my speakers apart because I'd kind of learnt since that time that if I take things apart, generally they won't work if I try and put them back together. So I thought I need my speakers, so I'll spare them this time. And that's when the music thing started. That's when I went online onto YouTube, which was way better back then than it is now. Not because of the content. The content's slightly better, but everything about YouTube was better back then. And I asked the question. I asked YouTube, like, how does sound get out of my computer? I think that must have been the words that I typed into Google. And the thing that come up was a Fruity Loops FL Studio 6 maybe tutorial, or a guide on how sound works, like how digital sound works. And I was fascinated by it. So I downloaded FL Studio and realized that, wow, I can control sound with my mouse, basically. That's when I was like, and then I started going through the motions of like, right, I'm seriously digging into this. And like, it's amazing how much content was on YouTube at the time. There's thousands more people doing how to make music tutorials now. They're all garbage. Most of them anyway, because they will try and sell you something halfway in between. Never used to have any of that. Never used to have somebody trying to sell you a product halfway through a video. You know, you just click on a video, It was 10 minutes long of someone explaining real information to you. No, just because they wanted to, just because they were content with sharing knowledge, which upsets me now because, you know, people just want to do things for money and they don't want to. That's part of the reason why, if anyone did see the previous episode, if you look at the licensing on the YouTube, it's Creative Commons. So if somebody wants to take this and snip a bit out and use it as a clip, they're free to do so, because that's the kind of person I am. Tim never agreed to it. I'm sure you're okay with it though, are you? Do you have any objections?
Yeah, splice it up.
Yeah, spice it up. If you want to make a little song out of it, go ahead.
Yeah.
So that's how I found my passion. I can't remember why you asked me this.
It's just interesting. I was thinking about, I often wonder if we grow up thinking we want to do something, or if we end up doing things and liking things, and we look back into our past and paint a story as to why we've ended up the person that we are. Like, which comes first in a way? It's
I think
interesting.
Well, for me, the answer is there was something in me at a young age that enjoyed understanding how things operate. Where that came from, I don't know. Like what sparked that, I don't know. But
it's so funny that that people tell you to be friend, like that. You know, people try and join groups of similar-minded people to find friends, like, because we're so opposite. Like,
me and you?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, so when I was kind of growing up, like, it was funny because my brother was like not considered shy, but I was always like this outgoing younger brother, and he was like shy. Like that was kind of like the difference between us.
Yeah,
exactly the same. In like, we always spent time and did stuff, and he's an amazing brother, and we do amazing stuff together always. But he was, and it was weird because he was shy in a way, I think, growing up. And I wasn't outgoing, but people thought I was, and people told me I was. And I grew up believing that I was outgoing. So I would do things like join for the school musical, and I would do drama lessons and music lessons.
Right. To fit in with what people's perception of you was.
Yeah, and kind of what I learned along the way is that once I know people, so for example, my friends, if there's a group of like 15 friends in the room, like, I have no reservations about what I'm doing, what I'm saying, who I am. I never have a voice in my head. I'm completely opened up and natural, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And I am outgoing. But with the people I don't know, so the funny thing about doing drama shows, which if you are at school or have the opportunity to do anyone, I would recommend that if you're thinking about doing a drama performance or a musical or something, you should definitely do it, because it's always a good idea. But everyone who was there and who had a main part was pretty much, you know, I am outgoing. I'm gonna, you know, you turn a camera on in a room full of drama students and it's like a frenzy. Everyone wants to be on the screen, you know, everyone wants to be going for it. And I would sit there having these parts because I could sing, but being terrified of doing it. And that was always the battle for me, was even through my drama degree, was I'm good at this, but I'm terrified of doing it. And it was kind of this battle I'd had my whole life of people telling me that I was outgoing, but secretly thinking like that I'm actually not
built for this.
Yeah, but it was only at university where I had to perform so much. And I think, to go on a tangent here a little bit, but one thing I would like to say is that I think acting is one of the best careers anyone could have.
What makes you say that?
So, not maybe financially or anything like that, or being a celebrity, but there aren't many times in life where you can
pretend to be somebody else. Yeah.
And it's almost a form of meditation. In my final year, I did The Great Gatsby. We called it Obsession or something like that. Obsedere, that was it, what we called it. And we did this musical festival where you could walk around this room and there were no chairs for the audience. You'd just walk around and the actors would be milling amongst you. And I had this character, Nick Carraway, and it was like I got so deep into that character. And I wrote these like I think they're sonnets, like A B poetry, yeah, to narrate the whole play. So it's an hour-long performance, and I was the narrator who'd like take to the stage and do these monologues to explain what's happening. I don't know if you've seen Shakespeare, but it's kind of like that. Protagonist monologues the story at different intervals, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would act out. Here, when I was acting that character, I found peace being myself, because I was only myself for like 10% of the day. I was acting for most of it, and then I'd be getting home and I'd still feel like that character. Going to bed, like I was like staying up till like 5 a.m, just watching what I used to do. I used to watch The Sopranos and smoke cigarettes and just sit there and feel like I was a gangster. And like, it was this really weird sort of time for me. But I got so deep into it. And then when I came out of it and finished the performance, I had a pretty life-changing event after that as well. I got off stage and found out that my grandma died the second I got off stage. After doing like what was the best performance they'd ever marked. Like it was a crazy show.
What a roller coaster.
Yeah, exactly. But as I say, doing those things kind of left me with this feeling after uni of like, nothing matters, because you can reinvent yourself at any given time if you have to. This is who you are. You might as well just kind of not pretend and be comfortable with it, because it's going to be more effort pretending your whole life that you're someone else. If you just enjoy who you are, you find a lot of happiness.
Well, I think that's a strong message to. Well, here's the thing: is I think as you get older, you start to realize that what you said is true. But I think being somebody younger and hearing that, you think like that's not possible. Like I have to be the person that I'm pretending to be, because that's the way my peers expect me to be. Do you understand? Do you know what I mean when I say that?
I know exactly what you mean. There's something funny about me actually, which is that in certain circumstances in my life, in my career particularly, when I haven't felt comfortable or where I didn't feel like I was going to be the best at something, I would slip into it's not that I wasn't the best. When there was someone who was more confident that they were better than me, I would slip into this character who is an idiot. I'd actually be happy with people making fun of me and thinking I was silly. And I would almost perpetuate that story.
Like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is really weird when I look back at it. And what always happens is that person who's really arrogant normally ends up getting sacked or moves on.
Yeah.
And then I'm like liberated and I'm like, oh, it's me again.
Yeah.
Like, why was I doing that? That was really weird. Like, I just let this person affect the way that I live my working life for, most days. And like, if I have an idea at the table, I haven't put it forwards just because I know that you're just going to shit all over it or whatever. I think that
I agree. Now,
it's a tricky line to walk. And then, like, especially if there are any kids listening who are at school, like, I feel for these kids of this generation even more, just because of how severe social media, phones, just culture is. We're so clicky. It's just crazy. I thought the walls would be opening up when I was growing up. I always had hope that every year it was getting slightly less like that. But now I feel like the walls have closed in even further for younger people.
Yeah, and that's what I worry about most.
I almost feel like we were the last generation that was allowed to that we were. I feel like we were the last generation that around like 10 to 20% are fully awake, and you can have a real conversation, look in their eye, and talk about something that matters. I feel like there's like 10 to 20% of us, and I feel like we are the last generation that achieved that threshold.
Potentially, there are. So I think the beginning of what I would call the end of awake people was when the iPhone, people that started in year 7 with an iPhone, that generation and younger are living in the world that you're describing, i.e. like so much societal pressure through social media that it's just unbearable.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think because we actually had this unique curve of like technology in the sense that we got to go to school where a phone was part of your life.
But it wasn't your life.
Yeah, it was like just this thing that you could use to play Snake on and call people and text, and like, oh, there was a beauty to it. There was so little that you could do. Yeah. Every text mattered. You only had like 100 on your contract that month.
Yeah.
That's
if you had a contract at all. Yeah. We just, me and Ollie,
bundles and pay as you go.
Yeah, pay as you go, and we didn't even really want a phone. We was like, well, my parents, our parents just said, look, we need you to have a phone in secondary school because we don't pick you up from school and we don't drop you off. Like, you walk to school. So if something happens, we need to know. Or if something happens at school and you need us to come, like, it's purely there for a 999 or a 911 in the States. Like, it's an emergency phone number.
I can go on about phones just for the rest of like they're the biggest like. So going back to the sixth form common room or lunchtime, yeah. So even when we got to sixth form, people had phones, people had Blackberries, people had iPhones. Mm-hmm. I don't remember them being present. You would sit there and chat shit and eat your lunch. And that was the best part of it. Someone might get a phone out to show a funny video they found.
Yeah, that's it.
They're not sat there. Now, when I dropped Miyako at nursery, I walked past this secondary girls' school, and all of the girls sit around like the Baytree Centre, which is a shopping centre in the mornings, or outside of the school, just lingering around, going to different shops, whatever,
Yeah.
And I see some of them walking down the path in a row, all looking down at their screens. I see them standing in the shopping halls. The shops aren't open yet, and they sit there on a bench, 4 of them in a row, and they're all looking down at their phones, talking to each other. They're just always holding their phone. They're never not holding their phone. And then here's a contrast. Go and watch an episode of Friends and watch when they're all sitting there, a group of friends talking to each other. And I think Friends is something that resonates with a lot of people. But for me, it's this show of just beauty. It's like, life will never be that good, but if only it was. If only you had a group of friends that were that close and that funny and always supported you in this perfect world. But I tell you, the best bit about it is that every time they're sat there round a table, there's not a single phone in sight. And you couldn't have that same conversation with your friends. You can't have that same connection when you have a piece of technology sat there. So the technology itself, the phone, it prevents natural flow of conversation. It prevents natural, harmonious, loving discussion where anything actually matters. But also it provokes another type of conversation, which is like, the other day I was messaging you about IOTA, which is a type of cryptocurrency, which I know that you like. Yeah. And I was kind of like, I was shitting on it. I was just rinsing it at every opportunity I could. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you said, you're a bit PM, like you're a bit grumpy. And I kind of thought to myself, I was like, oh yeah, I read my messages back. Yeah, I am grumpy. But in my head, I was just laughing the whole time, just like, oh yeah, like sort of like that. And it's the same. Imagine like the amount of times
That happens to kids.
Text the partner. You text the partner and they take it wrong. That's why I always try, if I talk to Claudia, like talk to her on the phone, or like, make sure I put some emojis in there to try. Emojis kind of break this a little bit because you can actually convey a bit about what you're saying. That is actually brilliant product design if you think about it. The fact that they've probably noticed that through text it's impossible to convey certain words, and then they brought emojis on that is good. But I guess that wasn't them that thought of that. That was just the fact that we can make a smiley face with symbols, and we used to do that.
Well, I would argue that that is probably one of the first languages we ever had as humans.
Yeah, true. Inscribing little faces on walls. But yeah, I think the phone zone is a hole we've all fallen into. And the sad thing about society is that when we get into these chasms, we don't have the ability to actually campaign and discuss these problems and say, is it what we want? Do we want to live our lives like this? Is there anything we could do differently? If people have that discussion, it's not pushed far enough, because I know that there's people who would say the same thing, that would say, that parents who want their kids to have dinner time with them for once and not be looking at a phone, partners who don't want their partner to be looking at their phone before they go to bed, all of it. The phone has interrupted everything to do with our lives, and we can't contest it. We just have to live with it, and that sucks. Society should have to. We should have a forum where we can actually talk about these problems, and maybe it's like they have all those things to look after your health, but we never actually look after the health of society in the way that we should.
Yeah, well, I think there is a growing forum of people that are trying to fight against this abuse through, not necessarily like direct abuse, but just abuse that comes from social medias. And I think when I was out in Dubai, I asked you to watch the Social Dilemma Netflix series.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good. I mean, it perfectly represents what's going on wrong with the world. The funny thing is about it is the fact that it's on Netflix, that the show's on Netflix, kind of in some way negates its whole purpose of being. Because Netflix is used as like, people watch series on it. People binge watch series in a day these days. We're living in a world of instant gratification. So when a serious story or documentary / film, whatever you want to call it, comes onto Netflix, it's not necessarily taken with the seriousness that it wanted to.
Yeah, it trends on Twitter for about 24 hours, and then we all go on with our lives.
Exactly. So I don't know I don't think there is a solution.
No, the solution. So I'm still positive throughout everything, and I think that I'm hopeful that obviously there's going to come a time where we don't need to hold a phone.
It just be hardwired into your brain.
Yeah, and I think we have to be really careful about that journey, and that's kind of my biggest fear as well. Is like, I don't know enough about Elon Musk, but if I had a choice of Elon Musk making a chip for my head, and then
Jeff Bezos
or someone else rich, you know what I mean? Like, dude, I'm paying billions just for the chance to get Elon's, because I think he comes across as this human guy, like this benevolent guy who kind of gets it. But I think there are so many people who just don't, and it is literally it could just turn into like Pharaoh day slavery. Like, it's just, we have to be so careful about how we navigate technology going into our bodies. Not only what type of technology, but how is it accessible? Does everyone get it? Is some people get it? What does that mean if you don't have it? Are we creating poverty gaps because people don't have this technology?
Yeah.
But my hope, and this is the bit that I actually want to talk about, is that really, if we want to get technology into our heads, we should aim to take the bits of technology that better our lives. For example, right now, I'm talking to you over technology. It's the same sort of device as a phone, but it's bettering our lives because we can have this discussion right now. However, just like we said about the phones, like the fact that they're always in your hands and they're always, taking over this sort of conversation, maybe there's areas we can restrict there. What I'm trying to say is that hopefully the software that goes into our heads, whatever it is, however we run,
Doesn't crash.
maybe, wait a sec, maybe it can bring people closer to understanding. Like maybe when I'm talking to you right now, when I say these words, I can see the feelings that you're feeling in response to them. And maybe
Or feel them.
Maybe it's a third level to the conversation. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what we need with technology. We need technology that brings us closer together as a species. And a lot of technology at the moment is designed to split us apart, to put us into groups. Because once we're in groups, we can be productized and we can be sold to and we can be monetized.
Yeah.
But really, when you look at the crux of life and the whole thing that we're in, the fact that the table has molecules in it and that you're alive right now, there's got to be more to this than monetizing units of people. And that connection, I think, is worth much. It's 10 times more valuable, a million times more valuable. So if we can start harnessing that a bit better, brilliant.
Yeah. Now, I would, if I ever get the opportunity to have technology in my head, I think I would really like to have like a plug for a microphone on my head, so that I would no longer have any sound issues.
Wait, what? When you have a cold, you can speak clearer because you put the mic on? Do you mean an amplifying mic or a recording mic?
Recording mic.
I think it just does that. I think it can just record you.
It can just pick up this signals in my ears and transmit
It can tell by the way your body's moving and the sound waves that are resonating in your chest.
Ah.
That's how I did it anyway.
The other thing I would like is a very, well, of course it would be fast, but I would love a calculator, just a basic calculator.
Yeah, 100% with you there.
Just like, you know, sometimes maybe if it's advanced enough to be like a spreadsheet, like, wouldn't that be amazing?
I love it. Like, we're all thinking about the amazing things we can do with technology in our head, and you're thinking, oh, I'd fucking love a spreadsheet in my head. Like, do you know what this technology is saying to me? Never look at a spreadsheet again. Whereas you're like, make my head see cells and equations. It's like, geez, man.
And a currency converter. They're basically that, like, I don't really use Google.
I don't think you need. It'd be interesting, the question of if you need a tool like a calculator or if you just know.
I think you would just know. Like, I think you would just go, like, as soon as
ask the question.
No.
Because
as soon as you've thought about it, you'd have it.
Yeah, you got the platinum upgrade that does long division and
yeah, floating point math.
You've got enough to pay monthly for that subscription. That runs out when you're doing your shopping. You can't add up your shopping. You're going to be in trouble.
Well, that would be amazing. Like, imagine that barcode scanner in your head. Just like look at a barcode and it goes, and it adds it up.
The complete opposite way I want this technology to go with it. Yeah, this is it. You've just made us into those little shopping scanners. We can just bend over and put our forehead to products as we shop and then pick them up and consume them and just keep going on and on and on. God. He's the richest man now.
Musk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Elon.
Good
Going
old
for
Elon.
it. He's a born legend. Like, I think it's hard to think of many people more inspirational than him.
he just worries me. It just like he is a pretty amazing guy, but well, there's two things that I'll say is some like people always say if something's too good to be true, it probably is. And
Yeah, I feel that a lot.
I don't know if there's an exception to the rule. If there is, it might be Elon. The other thing that worries me is, or this could also be the evidence for point number one. And I know I shouldn't be like this because I'm not this kind of person, but his personality scares me. But even though I am like him in some ways, it's kind of scary to listen to him try to put words together. It seems like that's a difficult task for him, which scares me, as it would a lot of people.
So when I look at Elon, when I watch him in his interviews, I think he's of the belief that it's hopeless, that we as a species can't solve the sort of problems me and you talk about, that there's no hope for us. I think even his Twitter bio says like that he's building a spaceship to get us off the planet before a meteor hits us or we blow ourselves up. I think that's what his bio says. I might be wrong.
Yeah.
And I think when people ask him questions, it's a little bit where his head goes. He's kind of like, right, well, can't tell everyone they're going to be dead in 100 years. Can't tell everyone that, you know, there's probably only going to be 1% of the society that actually makes it off planet Earth. Can't tell everyone this, that, and the other.
But
so I have to just answer this question like this, and that's why he takes so long, is because I think he wants to tell people more, but he realizes because he's intelligent that he can't, that he shouldn't. He has to retain himself within himself and hope for the best.
So you think that he has gone through all possible, like quite like many possible scenarios of him saying certain words, and you think that he's like maybe because of the guy he is, like sort of derived that the end result of any words that he says ends in something bad happening. So have you seen?
Have you his words very carefully, and he's learned that through the mistake, because he's an intelligent person, and some of the biggest mistakes he's made in his life are the things that he's said, because he has this faith, just like any nice guy would, that the world will do well with his words. But then people haven't. They've tried to rip him apart and ruin his business and ruin his prospects on everything that he says. You know, the wonder of Elon Musk is the fact that there hasn't been a scandal that comes out about him every week. How does he manage that? How does he live a life where every journal person would rip him apart if they could, but he manages to keep his personal life and everything is quite good at doing that, you know?
He is, but his partner's not all that good at doing that. I mean, she is.
Yeah, I know, but even so, have you seen much about it in the news? No. Like, I know that there's been a few things every so often about it here and there and whatever, but somehow he always comes out on top. He comes out, he's like a rock star.
Just pays
He's like Tony Stark in the old Iron Man. Yeah, less arrogant, but he has that, like, just surfing through life, working it out as he goes, and people respecting him for it.
Yeah. Interestingly, my brother used to listen quite a lot to the music that Elon Musk's current wife made.
What's her name again?
Her name, artist name is
Grimes.
Yeah. And
so I got no idea what music it is. I got no idea.
It's well,
I'm assuming it's like a white girl rapping.
It sounds like. Wasn't back then. When my brother first started listening to her, it was I think she had a Juno synthesizer.
I'm imagining her being a bit like Lord to start with.
Lord.
You know, Lord with an E on the end. 'Cause you'll never be.
No, she was a bit more experimental. It's good music.
Okay.
I can't remember any of the songs though. Let me try and pull up. I'm not going to play it, obviously, but I'll just see if I can remember what the song was so that I can at least tell you about it. Grimes.
She is a bit
She's a bit
Lady Gaga.
weird, yeah. But the music's quite cool. Grimes, Oblivion, I think was the song that was that Ollie liked, or that
I'll have a crack after.
yeah. Anyway, I was going to ask, do you watch Rick and Morty?
No. Struggled so hard with it. So hard.
What did you struggle about it?
I was just watching it and I was like, I don't understand if this is a kid's show or if it's Family Guy. And if I can't...
Well, you've totally misunderstood everything about it then. Yeah.
Well, it's like Futurama. Have you watched Futurama?
Futurama is okay, but it's
But it's just this middle ground that I can't understand. Like, I find The Simpsons really, really funny. I found South Park incredible. I can watch South Park. Like, even now in lockdown, I've been doing that. Like, sometimes before bed, if there isn't a YouTube video from one of the people I'm subbed to that I want to watch, I'll just be like, yeah, whack on an episode of South Park.
See, I would have thought you would have liked Rick and Morty because
I think I probably would, but it's just not like the first few episodes. It didn't grab me, and if you don't grab me in your first episode, see you later.
Well, that's exactly what I said about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I still can't believe that. So,
well, I can't believe you haven't watched Rick and Morty.
Well, I'm going to throw it out there that everyone in the audience thinks it's more crazy that you haven't watched Game of Thrones than I haven't watched Rick and Morty.
I'm not so sure.
It's the best thing in the world. Do you know what? The Game of Thrones is only as good as the world that the writer made. And I haven't read the books. I've listened to them a little bit on and off, but you just get lost in them. It's impossible to listen to them because it's just so much description. It's unbelievable. But I just get lost in that world sometimes before I go to sleep, and I love it because you might get a Game of Thrones dream if you're lucky. But the sadness, as with a lot of TV shows, this is actually a good topic that I wanted to talk about. The sadness with Game of Thrones is like how everyone said on Twitter was the way that it ended, and you get sucked into this amazing world, and then the story just didn't quite work. And this is something that I actually thought to myself the other day, I must talk to Willie about. So, we've talked about art a bit on the last podcast, but we didn't speak much about movies and film. And I think there's a shift taking place in film. Film always used to be a method to tell a story. Okay. So just like you'd learn in English lessons, like Shakespeare plays, you have like the start, set the scene, a little bit of mellow mini drama, carry on a bit more, maybe find a love story, and then the big drama happens. And then we have a resolve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
much like a song.
Yeah, exactly. It's a format that we like to follow. We like to follow this climax. If you can imagine it, it's basically like having sex.
Yeah.
Like just draw that line. And unless you're a champion who goes 5 times, that's pretty much what you're looking at in most art forms.
Yeah.
So what I don't understand is I'm now finding that I get to this point where I know what's going to happen next in a film, or I know that something can't happen because it's too early in the story. And what I'm also finding is that I'm enjoying the first 40 minutes of a film way more than any other part of the film. And the reason for that is that in that time, I get to learn about a new world and new characters in that world and how they live. And they're not so much trying to fit that curve of we must find drama here. Harry Potter. I love listening to Harry, Ron, Hermione, Ginny, Fred and George playing magical cards up in the common room. That's the best bit of the book for me. I sometimes find little chapters to listen to just to remember how good it is when they're just sitting there not chasing Voldemort. Avatar, okay? Avatar, one of the most amazing films ever to go and watch in the cinema. Best bit about it, first 40 minutes when they discover the world. Story after that, couldn't care less.
Yeah, I totally agree.
The sad thing is if they'd made a 10-season documentary with Avatar's quality about Pandora, I would have watched every episode and loved it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't even, they'd be like, look at this tree. It's connected to an interwebbing love, and they can communicate through it. And this is how it works. And it's all bullshit. I love it. I love it. And it's the same with Harry Potter. If they could just do a soap series of people going to Hogwarts, I'd love it. So if you're out there, if you're listening, Netflix, please just stop putting stories to stuff. And I think we are getting there a little bit. We're getting there a bit better. But it's like, do you know what I mean? We've heard it all before.
Well, I guess my question that naturally comes to you then is, what is the purpose of video games for you? Because video games, in my opinion, good video games should deliver us some story.
This is really interesting.
Or some learning.
So, since around Call of Duty 4, I think every game that I've bought, I have never played the story mode, and I have always just played multiplayer. So my relationship with a game is I want my brain to be active. I want it to be stimulated in a certain way that isn't doing a Sudoku puzzle. It needs to be quick and fast-paced and interesting to me. And I want to tell the story myself. I don't want to be told the story. Okay. So, for example, when I played Call of Duty 4, I'd be running around no-scoping, like doing trick shots. I'd never play a game like a normal person does, just trying to play the game. Same as Tony Hawk. Like, I'd be trying to plan the most perfect run. FIFA, golf games, any of them, when I play, I turn the commentary off, and in my head, I'm the commentator. Formula One's the same. I like commentate my upcoming season. Tim Hember is a new Formula One arriving on the scene. Oh, he's a dangerous driver, this one. They've never seen someone overtake like that before. That's what my head does. And I don't want to be told that story. I just want to play it. And that's why I never really play the story modes.
So, okay. Now, I don't know if you've ever played any games like this before, but I guess over the past 7 years or so, especially on the PC, there are some independent games that aren't necessarily designed for they're designed for gameplay, but the focus is the aesthetics, like the beautiful imagery that can be created in a game, or the movement, like the types of movement that the character can have.
Yeah, like Assassin's Creed or something like that.
Maybe something like that. I don't know of any games off the top of my head, but those games don't really interest you.
They do, but I'd rather watch someone else play them on YouTube.
Okay.
I don't want to sit there and try and figure out how to play the game. I can't be asked for that.
So you don't want somebody to tell you the story of something. You want to make your own story. But you also don't want to learn new things.
No, it's not that I don't want to learn a new thing. I just don't want to play out the story. I'd rather, like, if it is going to be a story experience, then I'd rather someone else play it. And then I can learn the game and see how it is once you've leveled up your character, because I'm never going to get to that for level. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, and I can sit like on my bed on my laptop watching it in 4K on my laptop rather than sat here or thinking it's 4K but not actually watching it in 4K. But yeah, it's interesting though, because games are always like I think you've had it as well. I remember when you were in Dubai. So whilst Woody was in Dubai, I used to log on to Discord, and like at most hours of the day, next to his name, it would say, playing Call of Duty 4.
It's the best game ever made. Like,
and he plays it on PC, and we all know that it was actually better on Xbox, but we won't get into that.
Well,
but he played it a lot.
If I had an Xbox, I would play it on Xbox. But the thing is Activision don't even host the servers anymore, so I can't. It's impossible.
They remastered it. You need to get the new one, mate.
Yeah, apparently the remastered one's shit.
Well, only if they made it so no scoping was random. But so you do that, and I'm quite the same. So I have like 3 or 4 games, and throughout the day, when I can grab moments where I feel like Miyako's like interested in something else, or I don't have work to do, I might play a game. And I honestly don't know why I'm doing it. I don't know what I'm getting out of it. It's just filling the day. And it's actually quite a sad thing when you think about it, because if you had a jar full of jelly beans and every jelly bean was like 1 month of your life, or 1 week of your life, or even a day of your life, and you saw how many you had, you wouldn't want to spend them playing games. And this is kind of like going back to the whole thing about society not able to say maybe we don't want to spend our time using phones. I think we also don't realize that none of us really want to spend any of our time living life the way that we actually are living life, whether it's going to work, whether it's watching TV, whether it's living in a house and not traveling the world and not just being an animal. We're not an animal anymore. We're so far beyond being an animal. Like if you just pick any animal, go and look at what it does. It does its daily thing and it bases it on instincts, natural instincts of what it wants to do. Whereas humans, we stimulate ourselves to the point we have so many choices that we're literally fighting to just get ourselves through the day with an activity that makes sense doing, your like spending a little bit of time doing, when actually you could really just spend your whole life devoting your life to the mission of exploring what life is, what it is to be a human, what it is to learn different skills, what it is to travel the world. And it sounds like, oh, Tim, come on, we can't live in that world. But I actually don't see why we can't. There are people who do it. There are people who literally devote their lives to either traveling, spiritual learning, all of these different things. But 99% of us just sit here, and I'm probably going to do it tomorrow. I'll open up a game and play it.
Yeah.
It's a never-ending cycle, and I do hope that as I get older, as I get more financially secure, as it's less of a push against the world, and I start to sort of buy my time back, because that's how life works. You're kind of indebted to the way the world works, and in my opinion, every bit of money you save, every sort of equity you get in this world is just to push back against that. And maybe in that time that you acquire, you can actually start to discover something you like. And that was like the aquascaping for me in a way, which is keeping fish tanks. That was what that was for me. It was like a moment where, okay, I'm not playing games. I'm going to try something new and get in touch with nature and tropical nature, because I feel like I really like tropical areas of the world. I've never really been to them, but I feel like there's a part of my soul that belongs there. So I did a bit of aquascaping.
Again, it's feeding into your enjoyment of world building, isn't it? Aquascaping.
Yeah, that's so true.
You can build up your own little world, and
yeah,
you can talk to yourself about, oh, look, these fish are going to love this. They're going to swim through this little hole here, and some of them are going to hide in this nice little bush area that I've made for them, and look out on the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's it. I was thinking today about like when we finally move house, like the fish tanks I'm going to get, and yeah, I keep trying to push you to get one just so I can see another one be created. It's like I just want to relive the moment. It's always really good when you make one.
So there are more things that I would like to talk about. But I think it's coming to that time where we might call it an end of this episode.
If that is the case, I do have a disclaimer, which is that now we are into our second episode. We can end the show in the proper way that you end a podcast, which is to say thank you to our 6 new subscribers. You have changed our lives in insurmountable ways. I think we also achieved 1 like on the last video. It's been up for around 5 hours, and that's almost 50 views. So by the time we're dead, it will probably have the same amount of views as a Joe Rogan podcast, as long as that keeps going. I think the aim, as far as I can see it, is to kind of take it in turns every so often, doing these podcasts, talking to each other. And I really would like to adventure into bringing some people onto the podcast.
I
At which
agree.
point we can sit back a bit and let them take the reins. So, most importantly, I wanted to get that across, that we're delighted to have the new subscribers, and we will champion our absolute best wishes towards keeping this podcast going, keeping you entertained, and bringing you the absolute best delivery of the Just Swim cast.
And of course, continuously be devoted to the development of our species. I think that's up the top there.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it more than you. I've made 2, so nearly.
Anyway, thank you for listening.
Yeah, but before
okay.
we go, there was one thing I wanted to say, which is that we started the YouTube channel with the idea of a big mind map of the things we could do. And it wasn't just a podcast. So I'm also delighted to announce that we pledge, even though we've got nothing prepared to this, and I'm just making, Woody isn't aware that I'm going to say this, but we pledge to make some different content for you over the next 2 weeks. I pledged to make 1 video myself, and Woody has also just now pledged to make 1 video himself.
Jesus.
Perhaps we'll do them together, I'm not sure. But we will try and bring you some shorter content that isn't 2 hours of us rambling along. And if you do have any ideas for what you'd like to see, then let us know in the comments. But we do understand it's a quite empty place in the comments right now. If you don't want to be the first one to leave a comment, that's fine. But just remember that if you are the first person to leave a comment,
we will definitely do it.
We'll definitely do it. And in around 20 years or 30 years' time, you will be able to say that you were the first comment on the Just Swim cast. And I think your grandchildren will be proud of that.
I think so too. I'll post a picture of the mind map that we've built.
Yeah. And with that, we will move into the end of the show.